Welcome to Sophie's patch in the Adelaide Hills. This is a 3-acre property and I'm going to take you on a tour of my garden. Our climate here is pretty harsh and we're summer dry, so typically we have 6 months without rain over the warmer weather with temperatures up into the mid-40s and 6 months with rain in the cooler weather. Now I'm going to take you on a tour of my garden. When visitors come, we give them this map, and that's what I'm going to show you and explain the situations as we go. We bought this property 8 years ago, and at the time my vision was to create a highly productive yet beautiful climate compatible garden. I was inspired by watching the English series of River Cottage and really wanted to do that, where we grew our own fruits, veggies, herbs and even some of our own meat. Now, a couple of years in, due to the harsh gardening conditions here, I realised it was much more like the good life, because if things could go wrong they would, and many plants have died along the way. However, 8 years in, the plants that have survived are starting to thrive, and you can see that the garden has grown quite extensively. So as we walk along here, you'll see I've got hedges of saltbush. They're not only to cut down the wind, because prior we were in an exposed windy paddock, they're because saltbush harbours the highest number of beneficial insects of any Australian native plant. So that way I'm bringing in the good guys that help me manage the bad guys. This area is my wicking beds, and I'm addicted to wicking beds. They make veggie growing easier because the plants can basically access moisture when they need to. And in a harsh condition like this, where I have to water daily for veggies that are in the ground, I only need to top my wicking beds up about weekly. Now, if we walk through this elderflower hedge, you'll see that I've got my large in-ground veggie garden. And here, I let things self-seed because I figure when they're ready to come up, it's the right time to sow them. So there are plants on the paths and there are lots of flowers too. Now again, those flowers are for a specific purpose. Those flowers are to bring in the good guys. So whether they're daisies or umbels for the ladybirds, hoverflies and lacewings, or they're just borage for the bees. Because to me, a garden that's buzzing with creatures is the sort of garden I want. Now, I have a large veggie patch and about 18 wicking beds. So obviously I produce a lot of veggies. So we produce more than we actually eat. But because we have a number of tours through here, we end up turning a lot of the produce into cakes, or we share with family and friends. Now you'll see that at the moment it's at the end of spring and everything's out in flower and looking gorgeous. We have frosts here for 6 to 7 months of the year, and that certainly affects what we can grow. But at this time of year, when the frosts have finished, the flowers are looking fabulous. And there are bees everywhere. Now I'm totally biased. I'm the patron of the Beekeepers Society of South Australia, and I love to have bees in my garden. But as well as bees, we've got lots of native bees and lots of butterflies. So one of the things about butterflies is you don't get butterflies without caterpillars. So I'm very aware of not fussing over leaf damage, because that's how you get butterflies. And I don't expect the garden to be perfect because nature's not perfect. Another area that we just love is this back area, which is really where we live in summer. It's our entertaining area. We've created a pergola and the wisteria is finally starting to cover it. So this year we should be nice and cool and shady. And we've got this big table here that we can all pile around. We're a big tribe. When we're here, it's 7 of us, let alone when we have friends over. And in the middle of the table, I've planted out some herbs and edible flowers and a few veggies, and this is my veggie table. In this orchard, we started off with 100 deciduous fruit trees, and we planted them in winter time. Now, not all of them have grown, nor like our conditions. We also have salty bore water to water them. There's no mains water here. But those that have grown have started to be productive. And just over a year ago, we installed this huge netted bird cage over the top. And it means for once I can actually get the fruit. Because being in a semi-rural area, hordes of sulphur-crested cockatoos used to come in and eat the fruit before we even got to Christmas time. So we've got a range of fruit trees. There's not 2 that are the same variety, but there are, for example, 16 apples, there's about 16 plums, we've got quinces, pears, peaches and nectarines, apricots and much more. There's nothing like real fruit picked fresh in season. And we do have a cellar under our house, so we're very lucky that we can actually store stuff for a short period, or we preserve it for future use. And when I started, I had chooks, ducks and geese in the orchard. The chooks were to eat our food scraps and obviously give us eggs. The ducks were to manage snails, and the geese were to mow the grass between the trees. Now, over the years, I've changed the way I use those 3 different flocks. The chooks are still in there and they manage our food scraps. They give us wonderful eggs that we just adore. The ducks I've actually relocated, and they now free range around the garden because I find I don't really have many snails inside the orchard. They're more outside. They're not allowed in the veggie patch, but I try and let them free range anywhere else to manage the snails, and they sleep separately. And the geese, who used to be in the orchard to manage the grass, since I've put a thick layer of woody bark mulch down, they're no longer needed in there. So I let them out every day and they wander down to the paddock where they mow the grass there, and they come back by the afternoon. Really, I don't need geese in the cycle of this property anymore, but I love them so much I can't imagine life without them. Now, elsewhere around the garden, you'll see lots of different flowers. Diversity really is the key to a healthy garden. Rather than just having 100 plants of one variety, we're far better to have lots of different things that are flowering at different times, different heights, different sizes, different shapes. That's creating habitat and food for all the beneficial creatures in the garden, whether they're ladybirds, whether they're bees, whether they're butterflies, or whether they're birds. And I do try and make sure that this garden has colour and interest all year round, because I'm a plants person. I love plants, and to me the test of a good garden is one that does have things looking great all year round. One of the newest areas of my garden is my citrus grove, and while it looks fairly bare and sparse at the moment, the citrus trees have started to grow. One of the challenges here is not only do we get baking hot and windy in summer, we go down to -5 in winter, so the frosts are vicious. And in a wet year, the plants can actually get wet feet. So I've had to elevate the beds so that it's actually, the root system is growing above the soil level. And I've got these wind protection around them, which I plan to leave probably for another year. Now, in between the citrus, for the moment, I grow annual vegetable crops, and this is where I grew pumpkins last year, and I'm just planting my next lot. But in time, hopefully, these citrus trees will give us an abundance of beautiful citrus during the cooler months of the year. Throughout the garden, you'll see there's a number of quirky installations. Some things are made from horseshoes, which I just love. Other things are made from old bike wheels, or all sorts of recycled art. One of the things that I love to do is to create some quirky installations that are personal to this place, and you can have fun with them. And half the time I'm growing vegetables up them, whether it's pumpkins growing up over bike wheel arches or other things. But I do love to have fun, and I love to experiment. Basically, this property's 3 acres, about 2 acres is garden, and this is my dirt lab where I can trial things out and then talk to people how to grow plants in different ways. I hope you enjoyed the tour of Sophie's patch, and it gives you some inspiration to have fun playing in your own garden.